This question comes from Visabal. What is the difference between vowel modification and vowel migration, and how to apply it? Which one's better, or what does it depend on? Thank you. It's a very interesting question, and it brings up a good point that there could be some unclarity on this.
Yeah. Um, Vowel migra I'm not sure what they mean by vowel
In
migration.
the sense of Ken Bozeman probably talks about letting the vowel migrate rather than
Oh,
changing the
oh,
shape.
yeah, 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 yeah. So there's passive vowel modification versus active vowel modification. Yeah. And so what will happen is in the beginning, we tend to need to actively control the vowel. And so that's more vowel modification. Whereas the migration, that the passive vowel modification is if you leave the vowel alone, it will, as Ken says, turn over. It will modify itself because you're not trying to keep the same setting. You're not trying to keep the same alignments. You know, that's very often the habit, the yell, that the singer has to break. The fear is as we let go of the familiar in the lower register, we enter into instability.
Yeah.
And the singers, what you're learning to do is to master that instability, and it's no longer an instability. And so the vowel itself will turn over and will migrate and will change. So they're not exactly the same thing. Migration is a little more advanced. And I'll tell singers, we'll work the vowel, and then I'll go, now just leave it alone. And at a certain point, you can start leaving these vowels alone. You can play with them for color, etc. But in terms of registration, there's very little that you need to do depending on the vowel. And so that's more vowel migration. That's a little more advanced.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification. I'm noticing, just on a personal note, I had to get up at 3:30 in the morning. I have two teenagers, and they came home last night, and they were kind of in a little quarrel. So Daddy here had to be the listening ear, and it's rare you have a deep talk with your teenager. They usually don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I have to get up at 3:30 and drive 2 hours to the airport, and then drive back and be on time. You know, so I'm noticing through a little bit of lack of sleep and hydration, my voice is really thin and dry today. So as a singer, if I were going to go on stage in an hour, I'd be very nervous. But just wanting to point this out, that we wake up every day to a different voice, and that does depend on what we eat, our sleeping habits, our hydration. So if one day your voice is feeling great and the next it's not quite the same, one element could be that your technique isn't quite stable yet, but there's the very real element that we're human beings and we have a biological instrument, right? And it's going to be different every day. Now, the very comforting thing to know is that if you have developed your technical level to a certain point, you're going to still be able to sing and sound great no matter what your physical state. But it's always more satisfying when you feel better.
Yeah.
I want to jump in on this because with the modification and migration. So the modification for me is the actively making adjustments to the inner spaces. Like you are controlling, you're saying tongue go there, tongue do this, larynx do this. We're modifying the inner spaces, and that, as John said, can be a very effective strategy. But at a certain point, to really experience your vocal freedom, you have to let go. But you can only let go if you've developed your coordination to the point where it can maintain the basic necessary shaping and activity. And this is really important. So as you're practicing, try and let go. If you let go too much, you'll know because it won't work. But you do have to get to that point where you allow the voice and you allow your system to make micro adjustments. The voice is always in motion. Every space is in motion. It needs that flexibility. And if you hold it in too tight, you'll never experience the true relaxation and freedom that is so exciting in singing. So I don't want to go off on a tangent because I tend to like to talk about singing. I don't know if any of you out there have gotten together with your singing friends or singing teaching friends, and you had a partner or friends that didn't know anything about singing. They usually get up and go do their own thing because the singers are so intensely talking about it. It's kind of a fun phenomenon.